SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stone Go, Gary 5, Jaho Jeff Kados.
Darren DeLon, Jeff Kados.
Okay. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew in beautiful downtown cloudy Okmulgee today. We've got a couple things we'll be sharing with you. We've got Garricka Bateman from the Department of Health's Diabetes Program, thank you. And in the second portion of our program, we got our editorial crew from Mvskoke Media coming in to talk about some of the top issues and some of our activities that we've been looking at. So why don't I just hand it over to you, Darren, and you can take off with our first interview.
First off, I just want to say it's great to be back, Gary. Thank you for letting me be on this segment. I think it's been a couple of weeks since the festival, so I'm just glad to be back here. Plus, I know not only we're on AM, but we're also on FM. Is that correct? 106.3. Is that right?
That's right. We're off and running on the FM dial, so you can check us there. And of course, as always, on 1240thebrew.com.
All right, so let's go ahead and get going with our first segment, and I would like to welcome Garricka Bateman. She is the Diabetes Program Manager for the Mvskoke Nation Department of Health. Garricka, how are you doing this morning?
Doing good, thank you.
Oh, Garricka, we got a lot of things going for the diabetes program. Y'all, of course, during the summer, I mean, we notice a lot of things, do slow down, but y'all stay pretty busy. I mean, y'all do have a kids camp going on right now. Is that correct?
That's correct. We finished one in Eufaula, and currently we have a camp going on in Okmulgee.
Okmulgee, and what's that all consistent of right now? I know they're doing a lot of activities, but what are they all doing? Is it like focusing on just diabetes or prevention of diabetes, or?
Yes, it's focused on prevention of diabetes. We have 3 active days for the kids. We have kids ages 10 to 15. They come in and we do an assessment. So we check their weight and height. We do a risk assessment for diabetes. So we find out about their lifestyle. Do they sit a lot? Are they active? Do they eat a lot of junk food? Do they eat lots of fruits and vegetables? Those type things. And then the rest of the days are consistent of doing physical activity. So dodgeball and running and shooting basketball, all those type things. And in between those things, we're having education. So they get to talk to the dietitian. They talk to a nurse about how to prevent diabetes and what are the signs and symptoms of diabetes. So they walk away knowing a lot.
And one of the things that they have to remember, I mean, these dietitians are not there to ridicule them, to undermine them. I mean, they're there to help them out. They're there to help them understand that. I mean, you can try to have those little snacks, if you do, but I mean, you want to try to portion them out or limit them. I mean,
right.
That's what you want to try and do, just not have as much, and you want to have more of those the playtime, the activities. You want the fruits and the veggies. You want to have those more than the snacks.
Right. And what we tell them is the dietitians are not the food police. They want to know what you like to eat, but then they want to teach you how to eat it the right way, so the right portion sizes. And then, too, they have a food testing. So they find foods that kids might not eat on a regular basis, and they have them do a taste test just to find out, well, maybe you like this if you tried it. So they've tried things like edamame, soy milk. They've tried just a lot of variety of fruits and vegetables to get kids to be aware of what's out there at the store.
That's another cool thing about a lot of, I'm not a big fan of milk, never have been, but that soy milk does, kind of help out, especially I've always heard that almond milk. I did try it. Still not a big fan of the milk, but that will, I mean, if I needed to try something, right, that would be the one that I would have to go after or dive into. Kind of change course just a little bit, while we're still on the fitness, while we're still on the balanced diet, the nutrition. I want to bring something else up, and it caught my eye, no pun intended on this one, but we talked about how, they had, we always want to keep our activity levels up, we don't want to like sit around, be lazy all the time, especially because, that kind of increases the ways to get the diabetes. But there's something else to check out whenever it comes to, if you do, I guess, have the type 2 diabetes, and that is the retinal imaging, getting your eyes checked. I never heard about that, and it's something new, and it's something I really, really want to talk about, because that caught me. So could you please tell us a little bit about that, about the importance of that?
Sure. Diabetes is a leading cause of blindness among working adults. There's effective treatment for it, and also there's a high prevalence of blindness caused by diabetes. So what we have started is we partnered with IHS, and we are doing the JVN program. So it's the Jaws and Vision Network, and what it is we have a special camera we'll have it at 3 of our clinics by September. But what it does is it takes a picture of the back of your eye to check for bleeding caused by diabetes. So when you have that bleeding in the back of the eye, it can cause blindness. So what we try to do is get an early detection and then early treatment. So we do the retinal scan in our diabetes clinic, and then if there's some damage or issues with your eyes, then we send a referral to an optometrist.
Now, with that bleeding, can that bleeding be stopped, or is that bleeding kind of like like a slow bleed, or can it be stopped, or there's just like a kind of like a little cut that's like just stays open?
It can be stopped.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't even know that you have damage to your eyes. You might think, oh, my vision is changing because I'm getting older, or maybe you have a little bit of blurriness, but nothing dramatic. And then all of a sudden, you might lose vision. Early detection is really key, and that can be having the retinal scan or going to your regular optometrist visit and having them do the dilated eye exam. The special thing with the JVN scan is that you don't need to be dilated. It only takes 15 minutes. Okay. The images are sent off to Phoenix to be read, and then the results are sent back, and then if there's anything that's needed a follow-up, then we schedule that.
Has this been started, or has this been going around for a while, this program, or is it just most recently?
Yes, the program has been in operation since 2000, but we recently have a camera in Mulgi. We got that camera last year, so December. So we've been doing the program here in Mulgi for just a few months.
Okay, even with just a few months, or the program's been around for a while. 18 years. I'm still embarrassed that I don't even know about it. Gary, have you heard of anything about that?
No, I hadn't, and I, of course, have been dealing with some of the treatments and things that have been offered. But, this is news to me. I had noticed that during some of the exams I'd had, they were paying some attention to the eyes, but I never figured that into the
Exactly.
formula.
We just, like you said, whenever, like you say, if vision goes, you just always blame it to, just getting older in age. So, that's always something to look into, especially, and especially for the younger generation. Whenever they get older, you always want something to look at. Look into, and this is something to take another glimpse into now. So, I really want to thank you for bringing that up, because oh my goodness, I never even knew about it. So, we got that to add to not to worry about, but just an early prevention to just bring that up. So, whenever. Before we go into anything else, whenever somebody was wanting to get checked out, I guess early prevention of diabetes, how can they ask their doctor or something like that? How can they get those tests, get those inquire about getting those?
Sure. The best way is just to know what is offered and know what the standards of care are. If you have diabetes or are at risk for diabetes, there are certain things that you should have done every year. So when you go to the doctor and they run labs, you can ask them, hey, did you run an A1C? Or I have a family history of diabetes and I'd like to be checked for diabetes. Most of our clinics all of our clinics offer the screening every year for patients who don't have diabetes. They will screen for them every year if they're at risk. And then if you have diabetes, and there's a list of things that need to be done every year. So your eye exam, your foot exam, seeing the dietitian, seeing a diabetes nurse.
Well, let me jump in here and ask this question. When I found out I was diabetic, and it was just wham, it kind of hit me. And I'm kind of curious what that part that plays. Are people reluctant to find out or ask? Does this present a barrier into getting the care that you need, as kind of dealing with that personal obstacle?
Sure. Part of the diabetes spectrum is that a lot of people say, well, I knew I was going to get it eventually, or, I have a family history. My mom had it, my dad had it, so I knew I was going to get it, but, it's still a shock when you're diagnosed. And along with that also comes sometimes some depression. So there's some things that we look at and avenues that we facilitate referrals to behavioral health if you're having issues with dealing with a diagnosis of diabetes, because it is a change in your lifestyle. You're going to have to change how you eat and how you are physically active, and then you might have never had to take medication, and now you might have to take some medication for diabetes. So there are a lot of things to deal with when you are at risk for, or if you already have diabetes. So we try and work with you on all of those things.
But one thing to remember too, like when Gary talked about, and we know Gary has handled his pretty well, and along like some people that I know, or some people who are very close to me, who are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, they're handling it well. And it's to remember, like people who are dealing with it right now, it's not the end of the world. You can still live your daily life. Sure enough, you do have those changes, correct? But
Absolutely.
You can still live a productive lifestyle.
You can live a healthy life with diabetes. And we have a lot of programs within the diabetes program to help you live the best life with diabetes. So visiting once a year or more with a dietitian really helps. I think one of the main things is changing how we eat. We like food. We're a social people, and we like, most of our activities revolve around food. And so, how do we still socialize and be the same person we were before we were diagnosed with diabetes? So can we eat the same foods we like? Can we eat our traditional foods? We can have grape dumplings if we want, but we just need to know what the portion size is, and we can't have it every day. Same thing with fry bread. We can't eat the largest portion, but we can have it every once in a while. So our dietitians work really well to see what it is you like to eat, and then showing you, okay, well, this is the portion size for that, and not saying you can't have that.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear, because I'm very, very guilty of that too. Of course, I'm one of those people that do like that. Eat the food whenever I get a chance, but yeah, I've just been working out, trying to do the portion things, a lot more, and a lot of people who are real close to me who are diagnosed, they're doing it as well. So I wanted to join them on that. It's really, really cool. Just seeing them, and they're more active. Watching them seem more active, and they're way more active than they were before they found out that they were diagnosed. So it was great to see that. Let's talk about another event that's coming up for you. Oh man, it's coming up here pretty quick. Within a month's time, a little bit over a month. It is the annual
Diabetes Summit. It's coming up August 30th. It'll be at the Glenpool Conference Center. It'll be from 8:30 to 3:30. It's a great event every year. We want everyone to come out and participate. There'll be speakers on everything from nutrition to foot care to general health information. So it's going to be a great event.
Whenever you're, are these? I know the summit is going to be talking about the main thing, like on diabetes. But are there going to be specific things that these speakers are going to be talking about? And do you happen to know about some of that right now? And can you give us like a little capsule,
Sure.
A little small capsule about it?
So this is the Diabetes Awareness Summit. So we talk about how to prevent diabetes. We'll be talking about how to manage diabetes. So one of the management topics will be foot care, and it'll be by a podiatrist, Dr. Vincent. He'll be giving a talk about how to take care of your feet when you have diabetes. There's a large population of people who have diabetes who have had complications and have required amputation. So we're looking to try to prevent that. We also will have our dietitians talking about what we just discussed about managing your food. So what types of food do you like to eat, and then portion control. We'll have some physical activity things to do. So you'll be there showing how dance can be a great physical activity to prevent or manage diabetes.
And so one of those things with like those breakout sessions, is just being able to see those people like give it a new activity, trying it out. It's a lot of fun watching them to try it. I mean, I know they're laughing, they're having a good time. Another thing, there are some people that who are unfortunate that are they have to have their foot amputated. I'm bringing up one of the subjects that you brought up, but with the foot care, what we talked about the eyes, but what about the what is it with the foot when it comes to diabetes? What is it, like circulation? Is it like is it blocked, or what is it, blocked circulation, or is it there's something about with the feet, like the extremities that?
Right. So there are a lot of things that can cause a person to have an amputation who has diabetes. One of them is slow wound healing. So if you have diabetic neuropathy, so you don't have feeling in your feet, and you get a cut or an infection of the foot, that can heal slowly or not at all, and then there might be a need to amputate. Circulation is another reason why amputations occur. So if there's poor circulation to the feet, those toes may die, and so they may need to be amputated. But we do offer, we have a podiatrist on staff, and he does great care looking at people's feet. Then if you're at risk, or if you can't look at your feet or take care of them very well, we have trained nail care and foot care nurses who trim nails and take care of calluses on feet to prevent those type of issues.
How many people are you expecting this year for your diabetes summit?
We're expecting near 300.
Near 300. Is it always a good turnout? I mean, is it like a lot of I noticed a lot of, like last year, I've been noticing a lot more community centers, communities bringing in van loads.
Yes.
Coming in. Is it going to be, are y'all expecting something like that again this time?
Yes, we hope that all of the communities take part in the summit this year, and we have a large venue, so we can accommodate as many as come. So if the community centers are listening today, please get together and get a busload and bring them on out.
All right. Well, that's going to be coming down to the end of our segment, and so could you just give us a little bit, tell us when that diabetes summit is going to be at, and where's it going to be?
Sure. It's going to be August 30th from 8:30 to 3:30 at the Glenpool Convention Center.
All right. If anybody has any questions, like, and this is just not pertaining to the summit, but just to diabetes in general, is there a number that they can get a hold of, like in a dietitian, or just to talk about diabetes? I mean, if they have any questions about it.
Sure, they can contact their local clinic and just ask for the diabetes department, and there'll be someone there that can help them. Perfect.
Garricka, I want to thank you today for taking the time, and we know that y'all's getting busy with these little kids camp, and also with preparing everything for the diabetes summit, and coming down to Mvskoke Radio to talk to us about what's been going on with the diabetes program, and what's going to be going on in the near future.
All right, well, thank you for having me.
Well, Gary, that goes our first segment, so let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we will return with the Mvskoke Media editorial staff, and we'll be talking about a subject that is kind of controversial, but also that's been making headlines in the state of Oklahoma. So please stay tuned to the brew, and we will be returning shortly.
Thank you, Rick.
Red Stick Gallery in Okmulgee, Oklahoma features items handmade or designed by Mvskoke Creek Enrolled citizens from all over. Owned by the Mvskoke Creek Nation, the gallery proudly sells ribbons, skirts, and vests, Southeastern designed clothing, jewelry, prints, and many other items. For more information, visit www.creeknationgiftshop.com. Red Stick Gallery, located 105 South Grand Avenue in historic downtown Okmulgee.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape. But then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio. We have brought in our crew from Mvskoke Media's editorial staff and reportage staff, the people who go out there and pound the pavement, so to speak, trying to bring our stories. We thought we would take a few minutes on the show here today to talk about some of the major topics that are affecting the Creek Nation and what's coming up, and a little bit about where Mvskoke Media is going. So we want to welcome to our studios, of course, our manager, Sterling Cosper, the TV host that we all know, Jason Salzman from Mvskoke Vision, our wonderful reporter and lovely and talented Liz Gray. Welcome back. It's been a while.
Since March.
And we've got Darren DeLon hanging on the corner there. So welcome, folks. Thanks for making time and bailing me out today. So appreciate it.
Oh, this was all playing, Gary. Come on.
Okay. Somehow you contacted the entire tribe and told them not to be on the show this week.
We make up excuses to hang out with you, Gary.
Oh, shucks.
I know, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, what do we think? The subject that we see on the horizon, but we're all trying to dodge for a little while. 788 medical marijuana. It has some implications, of course, for the state. But us being a federal entity and federal lands and things, we're in a unique situation, right?
Yeah, poor Liz here is lead on coverage. She stepped away for a little bit of leave, had a piece ready to go. And the funny thing about the paper is, and the news, is it never sleeps. So she came back and almost had to overhaul the whole thing with how fast this is developing. Liz, what were some of the things that happened?
I think one of the major things that happened while I was away was the Department of Health, Oklahoma State Department of Health, changing the dispensaries, banning the sale or the dispensing of smokable marijuana, and that was and like having a pharmacist employed to be able to dispense. I think that was another thing that had came out. And we had intertribal, so we had other tribes speaking on it. We had IHS speaking on it. So there was a lot more than what I got whenever I first started. At first, it was like we got Chief Floyd speaking on it, and he just said they were wait and see. And then the next day, because he was waiting to see what Governor Fallon said about, like, in this special session that they were supposed to hold, and they didn't hold the special session. And she just left it up to Department of Health. And so that was just the next day. And then for everything that followed, it was just like, here's this major break. Don't take a week off. Is basically what I learned. Don't take a week off from the news because, again, the news doesn't stop at all. And so I had to come in and, just push. You guys had a table while I was gone as well, so I missed out on that. And, there's a lot to it. And what it comes down to is just on the federal level, because of, federally, it is a Schedule I controlled substance. They're not going to dispense it.
Yeah, what I've found interesting about this topic is that it's an interesting litmus test of the complexities of tribal jurisdiction in relation to local, state, and federal governments. When I was at a pointer training, there was someone from Seattle, and they actually had just a marijuana beat because they had passed recreational medicinal stuff. And there's so many angles of this, and there's so many legal complexities. Then you throw in the tribal element, like with us, and it's like all of our staff have been pitching in on this issue because there's just so many angles to cover on it. Sauls, what are some of the things you've been thinking as we've been following this?
The stuff I had done was the interview with Chief Floyd, and then I asked an interview with Jerry McPeak, the tribal administrator, who was the tax commissioner. I asked him about it too, and I also asked Chief Robert Hawkins our light horse police chief. And so I was able to get, the head executive, the head law enforcement, and the head administrator kind of talking about the issue, which was cool. And because for us, as a Creek citizen, those are kind of the three people you're going to want to hear from as far as like, what are we going to do about this, or how does this affect the tribe or whatever. And just to kind of go over what Liz said too, they all did say that, that we were adhering to federal law, and it's federal law and this and that. And we heard Governor Anatubby come out and say, we're federal Indian trust land, it's going to be business as usual. But other than that, like Chief Lloyd said, he would be open to cultivation and everything like that. And he commented about how the drug testing for employees, if they had a card, or if they had a license or whatever, a card, and it showed up, that they would be able to, just like anything. I mean, if you're on strong medication right now that's prescribed, and there are things that are prescribed that can show up negatively on a drug test. I mean, they can show up positive on a drug test, but it is in a negative way. Like, you maybe shouldn't have that stuff in your system. If you show that you have a prescription for it, what can they do? And he basically said the same thing about this. So that changes a little bit. That gives us good information that we were really needing to know about as far as employees. And also, he said that, he noted that other tribes have tried it as an economic development, and it's worked out for them. And I think he threw out a figure. And Jerry McPeak said at first, again, it's federal law, something that have to be changed, blah, blah, blah. But he also said something, it'd be something that would be dumb not to look into, because we're always trying to come up with economic development, different revenue streams, things like that. And then Chief Hawkins was just straight up, law enforcement. He was like, hey, it's against federal law. And so, I mean, that was a good range of comment on it.
Yeah, and right now on the federal level, there's a little bit in play right now with a bipartisan bill. And apparently, a senator from Colorado, congressman, talked to Trump, and Trump said he might sign it if that bill goes through. We'll just have to see what happens. And then there's another piece of legislation, just strictly Democrat support with sponsorship anyway in play. So right now it seems like there's a lot going on even nationally with this issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's like federal law's trying to work around it in a way to where states and tribes can kind of govern themselves regarding marijuana, and having that back off, like kind of on enforcing, against it being a Schedule 1 drug.
Right, it's not blanket decriminalization,
yeah.
It's just allowing the governments to decide
Well,
for themselves.
Yeah.
The president's even said, of changing, the way we look at it federally. I mean, he's even came out and said that. So, we're at a kind of a crossroads with the deal. I mean, I think that, the more we learn about it, and more that it's opened up, and there's people coming out of the woodwork that say, I use cannabis for different medical conditions, and it's changed my life. It's completely changed the quality of my life. I don't know, how anybody can hear not just one person say this, but person after person after person. We grow this big group of people that have seen results, and I mean, that's medicine to me. So I mean, people were always looking for treatment and everything like that. If it just so happens to be from something that sort of was stigmatized as bad and evil in the 70s and everything, or 60s and everything like that, then you have to deal with that. So I mean, you look at it now, and you can't really deny when people say, oh, it's making me feel better or whatever. But when it comes up and it's something like marijuana, where there's so many people that have, preconceived notions about what it is, even if they've never tried it or been exposed to it or anything, it's going to cause, it's going to be tough for change. There's going to be really, heated arguments on both sides, and it's going to be something tough to change.
Didn't the governor say something about its medicinal qualities over a year ago, saying that we're going to have to look at this question and examine the herb for its possibilities there? And she didn't. I don't think she pushed any particular program at that point, but here it is surfacing now. It's been approved by the Oklahoma legislature, the voters, and they've said, let's go with it. But then the health board comes along and kind of puts a stop, knocking down the primary uses of the thing, and effectively blocking any possibilities there. So you got the federal position saying no, you got the state position saying yes, and then you've got all this discussion in between, and somebody's going to have to sit down and really knock some hard rules out.
One of the points that I had got some audio from Intertribal IHS, I believe his name was Captain Travis Watts. He spoke on it because he has experience as a pharmacist for decades now, and he said he compared it to the opioid issue. He said that it kind of snuck up on him. The opioids just kind of snuck up on him before, it's like whenever they figured out how addictive it was and how, the problems that it caused, it was too late. And that was his concern, was they think that there should be major discussion within the healthcare system and the federal healthcare system about medical marijuana, just so the opioid thing doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah.
And that's
that
his
really to me
concern.
sounds like somebody that goes, oh, we've got a problem now, and this could be another problem. So, but it just snuck up on us. That's ridiculous. To say it snuck up on us. You knew the dangers of opioids. You're a pharmacist. That's
But he was saying whenever it was first introduced, when the
I know,
when
but to
Mvskoke
me,
was
I'm like,
first
snuck up
introduced.
on us. Get out of here. You know what I mean? They know what they're doing. The big pharma knows what they're doing and everything like
Well,
that.
he's not. He wasn't part. He was
I
talking
know
about
he
healthcare
wasn't.
providers.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like that's to me, that's bah. It snuck up on us. No.
Mary Fallon, I think
You
she
can't
said
equate it
when
with
the
every other
petition
thing.
was in play that she was concerned that, it would essentially be passing recreational marijuana the way it looked to her, something to
Right.
that effect.
Yeah.
One thing we were talking about in the office yesterday was something that I kind of overlooked when they outlawed smokable at the dispensaries or whatever. At least the health board is moving to do that. That actually still you can get a license to grow in your home. That was part of the petition that was still upheld, and obviously because it passed and it's law, what is really their ability to actually govern on that? So that's something that, at least for me, slipped under the radar when I heard about the smokable thing at dispensaries.
One thing we got to remember, guys, too, is like Oklahoma is in what we call the Bible Belt. So whenever we were talking about with a lot of when it came to the voters, and I know we were talking about how it's going to be hard to bring up change. That's one of the main things right there. Everybody here. A lot of the people here in this state particularly, man, they don't want this. They really don't.
Yeah.
And it's mainly. And it's mainly because of that. I'm gonna have to say that. I'm just gonna have to throw that out there too. That's one of the main reasons why.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some folks that can't get past that and see the qualities and medicinal qualities, whatever. And hey, to each their own.
Yeah.
Everybody has their opinion on it one way or another. My comments and the things that I was like, talking about when we were just talking about the gentleman saying it snuck up on us. Opioids, I'm sorry, and you can go out and Google and do all the research if you want to, but opioids and marijuana, there's really no comparison as far as like saying like the harmful effects and everything like
Right.
that. You know what I mean? Of overusing or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like overdosing on opioid medication results in death. Overdosing on marijuana results in Frosted Flakes and brownies.
Well,
what I mean?
a couple of states that have already passed it, they have had incidents with they've had to outlaw gummies because children were getting into them in Colorado. With baked goods, you got people eating those, going
Edibles are
hiking,
tough.
and
Yeah.
ending up incapacitated. There are still concerns, obviously.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, sure.
Terminal munchies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And what we
exactly.
were talking about, Sterling, was with the thing that got kind of slipped under the radar, being able to grow if you have a license, like just your own, we were talking about the problems with that, and one of the things was like, what stops you from, still making it a street drug, of like, oh, this person has a license as well, and you can just say, it's just like I guess policing, the law enforcement part of it.
Technically, legally, they have a license to grow for themselves.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think the legal thing there is they're not licensed to dispense. That would be a dispensary. So it would still technically be illegal, but obviously, from a law enforcement standpoint, I can see some logistical concerns in dealing with that.
Just because your buddy has glaucoma doesn't mean that you have glaucoma, is what you're saying.
What about gun licenses?
Logically.
Yes.
The feds say if you
that's a big thing too.
can't have a gun
They
license to
took her
carry,
guns.
oh God,
And our weed.
then that's a whole new world.
I know.
Yeah.
But let's take a break from that particular subject. And do we have an update on the Murphy v. Royal thing there, or is it still kind
Sterling, I
of?
think, contacted or
Well,
reached out.
we looked at the Supreme Court site yesterday, and no. I mean, you can look at the most recent table coverage that we did a while back, just outlining what we think the outlook is for the Supreme Court hearings. There's going to be filing of some paperwork, briefs, essentially, each side getting a few chances to respond to each other, and scheduling oral arguments, basically, that would consist largely of the justices following up on things in the briefs. So we have yet to see a lot of momentum on that, and that's obviously expected whenever something hits the Supreme Court, that there's going to be a little bit of a pause.
And just
Well,
remember, at the
just
end of
say-
it all,
Go ahead.
there's Kavanaugh.
Yes, I was going to say, now we're going to looking at a new Supreme Court judge that is supposed to be conservative, and that could mean some trouble for not only this one, but a whole lot of Indian issues there.
Yeah, on the schedule, it's a pause. but-
Existence, tribal government existence.
Yes, reservation.
Serious. I'm not trying to be heavy. I'm just.
No, I heard the word privatized once
Yeah.
upon a
Oh,
time.
yeah.
There's a lot of intrigue on the bench,
Big
and then
time.
you've got Gorsuch that was actually in the 10th Circuit when the case was down there. He wasn't on the panel that reviewed it, but you gotta think he's had a look at it before.
What's
Yeah.
interesting though about Gorsuch is when he was, confirmed and everything, looking through his deals with tribal law, things like that. I mean, it was pretty on the. I mean, I wouldn't say it was slanted one way or another, So there is some hope, I guess you could say.
Well,
out there.
let us do a sort of a commercial for ourselves here for a second. You mentioned a discussion on the table, and that is kind of a round table where this crew gets together and discusses a top issue. And I think for the most part, it's had a pretty good reaction from people who enjoy this kind of free-for-all kind of thing. And others may not know it's out there. So
Right.
maybe we want to take a second to mention where it is and what it is.
Yeah, go to the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and type in Mvskoke Media. You're going to that'll be the first thing. If you put it in your search bar, we're going to be the first channel that pops up. Mvskoke Media, and you hit the red subscribe button on there. You can't miss it. It's right under the window. Red subscribe button. You're going to get all of our stuff on demand. Which is exactly when we upload it. I get a notification on my phone. All of your mobile devices that you would like, you're going to get a ding, look down, oh, they just uploaded a new video right when we upload it. And you're going to get all of our discussions, and there's a playlist on there of tables. So you can look at all the tables if you want to. We've done tables over 788, Murphy, some of our bigger in-house issues at Mvskoke Creek Nation. A lot of discussion, and I think like what you said, Gary, it's kind of this roundtable discussion where it's a free-for-all is what you said, but it's kind of like
It's going like it went this morning, pretty much, in video format.
And there's things where we can say, and people, and the good thing is too, we bring in people that are knowledgeable on the subject. We kind of missed out by not having Liz last week on the 788 table because she's been covering the topic for the paper. But it was nice to have Judge Moore there, the longest tenured district judge that's sat on the bench at the Mvskoke Creek Nation District Court. So obviously he knows a little bit about Indian law and tribal law and national law.
From my recollection, it's the first time we've had a non-staffer on, right?
I think
Although
so.
we've been trying for a while.
Yeah, we've reached out. We wanted to have citizens even come on, different citizens with different viewpoints.
Now, before we get too far into that, let's
But YouTube.
continue to pat ourselves on the back like this. Now, this Sterling is kind of one more embodiment of the freedom of the press initiative we've seized, have the bit in our teeth, and are running with. We see this as what we're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah. In the past, I think, and those of you that were with us that were doing reporting before we had it, we'd be a little hesitant and kind of cautious about how we'd approach something controversial like medicinal marijuana. And it's an important topic for our citizens. There's specific interests that they have in this that other people don't throughout the state. And so it's so important to have people that understand tribal law, know the questions and concerns, know the citizens, to actually be covering it for their interest. Recently, and I know our listeners and all our subscribers hear us go on about this all the time, but that just shows the priority that it is. We can't talk about it enough because it's so important. We can't get this information out if we're not empowered to do it for you. And we've been, NSU, you and I and Jason recently, talking to some people out at the symposium on the American Indian a little bit about it. And then actually we're leaving for our Native American Journalists Association conference, where we're going to be doing a similar panel, talking to some other tribes about how that works.
We got really good feedback at NSU from people that, wanted to talk about independent media with tribes.
Man, Sterling, when you brought up hesitant, I mean, when we were talking about this stuff, you're talking about mainly bringing up, I mean, we had it on the paper, and we had to have it looked at by certain higher ups, and they would cross out certain everything. They had to be, and we had to figure out how to bring we had to put something else there.
Well, not like some places I've heard where the paper always went through the higher ups or people in the executive office. So I think the big thing, although there were some instances of question, that you just knew where the stormy waters were, which was essentially what I was saying there. You bring up medicinal marijuana, people are automatically against it. Some of them going to be like, well, talking about it, some people just consider that advocacy. Well, that's not true. We're open to your opinion. We want it, actually. And on the other side, we're going to be talking about why the petition was introduced according to the people that did it. That's just what we do.
Yeah. Well, and when this is a great time to bring this up too. Is some of these things just make people uncomfortable. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Some of these topics just make people uncomfortable to talk about. When we did our another shameless plug, but when we did our candidate profiles this year for the National Council candidates, we gave them all controversial topics to talk about within the Creek Nation. There were things on there that discussed gay marriage in the Creek Nation. Stuff like that. That's a polarizing topic, and political affiliation outside of tribal elections. We had candidates say, "What's this got to do with running for Creek Nation office?" Well, my personal opinion aside, everything.
Well, it was never our personal opinion. We were actually drawing that out of stuff that people were hitting us up on social media about, which it's for us. It's about the citizens' interests, and so we're the conduit to the people that are going to be representing them. That's part of our job.
I think that's the main thing to remember, too. There's not any, individual or motive at Mvskoke Media, other than if you have a problem with the Mvskoke Media's motive, then you have a problem with the citizens of the Creek Nation.
Yeah, that's why I'll expand that. You're also welcome to criticize us in our own outlets.
Please, yes.
Yeah, one thing you learn in this business is to develop a thick skin.
Yeah, no, I mean,
sometimes it gets through.
But we're the people. That's the way we need to be thought of.
Exactly. Yeah. Now we've mentioned NAJA, Native American Journalists Association, and you're putting on a panel out there. Maybe a question you should put to your audience is to find out how many of them are conducting such activities as we are. It is, again, is patting ourselves on the back, but is anyone else doing, kind of essentially live programming on tribal issues? Does anyone else take these kind of polls that we do and then hit those hard-hitting stories like we do? As I say, it sounds like we're patting ourselves on the back, but I'm curious to see the status of our profession. So if you can get some response from your audience there saying, does anybody else do this?
Well,
think
there's
there's, what, 5?
one more tribe looking, actually. I consulted with the Free Press Committee with Naja, and there's another one that was asking about how we run the Grand Ronde. We were going to be co-presenting with past the year after us. So we're hoping to be able to call this a movement pretty soon.
Now, Grand Ronde is in Oregon, of course. Right. It's curious. I am delighted by the thought that this is going to be kind of a growing thing, that more tribes are saying, hey, wait, why can't we do this? And the reality is, in many cases, is still that you have a very strong administration, you have legal kinds of obstacles that you run into, plus the human factor, well, that's my cousin or that's my uncle kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, we managed to deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all got relatives that have kind of been in a jam where we've had to do this. And I'm quite sure that my opinions would clash with those of my own family, relatives and things like that. But it's out there in the publications that we do. I mean, I don't know of any other Native media group in this country that cranks out as much as we do. And I think that's something our listeners need to know. I mean, 4 newspapers, 2 hours of TV programming, of course, this show, 4 hours of radio, plus the live tables and anything else that we got to.
Yeah, I can't say it enough, and I brought this up during our budget hearing last year. Being free, we're not over a certain hierarchy that we used to be, but I can't think of any time we've worked harder. I mean, there's so much more we can cover, and we kind of have to.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys, but I feel
I'm sick of work.
a lot more exhausted than I used to. And another thing with the other tribes, and this is something that Jessica McBride, our managing editor, brought up when we gave our whole acceptance speech for the award for Free Press at Naja, is we understand what it's like to be under an administration, have all your formal training challenged and your ethics about not being free press. You've got a house, you've got kids. We're not here to preach at you. Ultimately, it's up to you to educate people, do what you can, talk to your officials. And what it comes down to is the people we serve, the citizens, but it also needs support from them because they're the boss.
Now, on that point, let me throw this one in, too, that we're not omnipotent. We don't know everything that's going on in the whole tribe. And there have been times when some good stories have gotten by us because nobody bothered to call us and tell us about it.
Right.
And it doesn't hurt to
It
do
happens a lot too whenever we're covering individual accomplishments. I've found, we highlight a player that wins an award in a game, or we highlight a kid that wins a spelling bee or something like that. That elicits all the calls of, my kid also won a spelling bee. These kids right here are Creek and they did this. Obviously we can't get all of those, I think to look at our stories in the paper is to look at a representation of all of these kids, right? There's only so many seats on the plane. We can put so many stories in the paper.
But we always got flights going out.
And some are, yeah, that's right, exactly. Some are going to be missed. And the paper isn't going to be, it'll never go back to a newsletter, right? We've come way too far to be a paper full of Billy won a blue medal, Sarah won the spelling bee, Johnny got straight A's. I mean, that those days are over. I mean, we're a newspaper now. So obviously news is going to get precedence and everything like that, but also look at those stories not as a slight because yours or somebody that or whatever wasn't covered, but look at them as a representation rather of what all of us are doing.
Yeah.
We're all in this
The
together.
thing is, we're always going to try to get to as many stories as we can to kind of balance it out. When we came in, we had a lot of catching up to do on hard news. We still do features. It is about the citizens. The way it's prioritized is kind of like the Spock rule sometimes. If this story is going to impact a whole bunch of citizens and it's quite clear, it's the one that's got to be top of the list. But yes, we'll go down and just talk to the one child that had an accomplishment. They're very important too. They deserve to be encouraged, and that's still a priority of ours. It's just that we're working with essentially the same amount of staff doing a whole lot more.
Yep, and our contact information, our hotline, even if you don't even want to know who you are that's suggesting a story. It's all on the website. We throw it out there. We're not shy about how to get a hold of us. If you got something, tell us. We'll cover it. I promise you guys, there's very, very little that, if anything at all, maybe even, that's somebody calls us up and says, hey, what about this story, that we don't cover. Ask somebody out there that's suggested a story to Mvskoke Media, and I bet you 99 times out of 100, they'll tell you they did this story. So a lot of it is just on your end to let us know.
Right. No, we're not perfect, and there may be times when
Dang, that hurt.
we get the hot story kind of overrides, the third grader kind of thing. But,
Right.
But
The big problem is, like, when they get a hold of us, it's like we don't have a lot of notice sometimes.
Right.
I mean, like, the sooner you can get with us, give it a heads up, the more information you can give us, contact, help us, help you, I guess, essentially.
sure, you can become part of the news gathering process. But, like a 45-minute notice on something going on in Holdenville is probably not going to get covered.
On Sunday or something.
Yeah. But we try and do what we can. Now, as we look at some of the upcoming kinds of things, where do you think we're going to be spending some energies, folks? Like, Liz, let me ask you, where you go? What kind of stories are you going to be looking at? Have you got something you're going to tackle? Something you're working on right now?
An interesting thing, I'm actually going to a pointer training here in August about covering jails with the Murphy thing, with the Murphy case, and that's a huge thing. And that training, I'm hoping, will guide me a little bit on how to cover it, because that's the start of the Murphy case was,
the murder case.
Yeah, Patrick Murphy. And so I'm going to be going through that training early August, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I'm going to be focusing kind of on that because, Oklahoma is, I forgot what is that, 1 or 2, in the most incarcerated people, number 1 for female incarceration.
Right.
And we have a great reintegration program, and I'm hoping to start with them, and I'm wanting to do a story with them, developing that. So that's probably going to be throughout the rest of the year.
You may be looking at a lot of the inside of the Okmulgee jail.
I was going to say, nobody's told her this yet, but we're just sending her to jail for a week.
And
That's
inside,
all. She thinks it's a training.
the old investigative undercover story.
Yeah.
Making a spoon into a shank with Liz Gray.
What to trade and how to trade.
Okay, well, Jason, where are your TV cameras going?
TV cameras are going in all different directions, Gary. All over Indian country. We cover it all. No, there's a lot of stuff to get to, especially, I don't mean to get way too ahead, but this next coming year, it'll be big because it'll be election year, a chief election year. Yeah. And we were just talking about this, at the end of this year, which is just crazily, it'll be here in 5 months. But it'll be interesting to look at this, the Chief Floyd's administration of his first run through, and talk with him, and be a little bit reflective about some of the things.
I asked him if he was going to run again on this show, and he just kind of laughed and turned darker brown.
No, see, that's a big question. No, that's a great question because Chief Floyd, at least to me, has never seemed like a career politician type. He always just seemed like a guy from a health administration world that was Creek and loved being Creek and wanted to give it a shot, and see what it'd be like of being an executive of the tribe. And so it never seemed like maybe you never knew. You almost just would say, "Oh, is he a one-term chief? Is he wanting to run again?" And he has always, like you said, when he's been asked, he's always been kind of real non-committal and kind of chuckled it off. And I don't know if he laughed when you
Pretty
asked
common
him,
campaign thing.
Right.
They always announce kind of strategically closer to the date. It seems
you never
like.
really know, but it's been fascinating to think about if he would or not, and he's gone through some big things. Right when he came in, he had he had the deficit and all that good stuff to work with, and then Of course, the layoffs and everything with health. That's a tough thing for a politician to survive and come through and everything like that. No matter if it was who's was to blame or anything like that, doesn't matter. The fact that a bunch of people lost their jobs and you were the chief when they did, that's something that you have to deal with politically.
Well, speaking of officials, like Jared's got a new thing coming up too, right?
Yeah, Jared.
More.
Yeah. I know, but he hasn't discussed it with me too much at length. But what has he spoken about with you?
Well, he's exploring maybe bringing on some formal officials to come on and talk about some tribal issues, current, past, things like that.
Basically like a civics lesson.
Yeah, kind of a meet the former press kind of.
Well, he's full of ideas, isn't he?
Oh, yes,
He
he
tells
is.
Sterling and not me. I tell you what, I can't wait till I get back. He's fired.
You listening, Jared? You better be.
Yeah, no, he's not listening.
Okay, well, Sterling.
You're
let me-
fired, Jared.
Yeah. Let me ask you now, as the manager, you were here when the Freedom of the Press law got enacted. There have been a number of staff change, and in all of that, we've seen some development here. Being the old hand and the old guy going to hang around the fort now, I've seen our younger people really develop, and I think gain a lot of confidence in what they do, and at the same time themselves, and start cranking out a lot more incisive, a little more in-depth pieces that I think are much stronger than when they first started out, kind of in their infant steps. Now, with that happening now, and I think the challenges that are still ahead of us, where do you see our department going? What do you want to see happen here?
Well, I hope to keep up that momentum that you just mentioned, and that's been one of the coolest things, is watching how people have gotten invested in the movement. Several of us were formerly trained in journalism. We help coach some of the other staff, and it's been really inspiring to see them take an interest, understand the importance of this, and jump in with new ideas and help carry the torch. And I hope, continue to do that. We've got our summer youth, our interns, so we can make this a long-term deal now that we have the legal framework for it. But also another thing that's been really neat is that, it used to be TV, radio, newspaper, and honestly they kind of operated on their own, just collaborating every once in a while. And I've seen the staff really come together to different outlets and even jump to our business team, graphic design, printing at Mvskoke Creative, our marketing, etc., and how it's really brought us together as a staff. And the only thing that really will happen with that is that everyone benefits, not only our team, but of course the citizens too that we serve. It shows in the quality of product that we put out, no matter what it is.
Well, that product has been recognized several times by different organizations, and with trophies, with our crew winning acknowledgement for their work, and this, we're turning out some good stuff. And our latest, at the beginning of the year, we got recognized by Society of Professional Journalists in the competitions that they normally hold for themselves. And there was other Native organizations involved too who also won, but it's nice to see the growth of Native journalism from its infancy, I suppose, when I first started, Up back then, there were, Akwesasne notes, and everyone says Wasaha, but I never read that one. But it's there when we're seeing all this new people in all these different mediums, radio, TV, and producing a lot better stuff. In the last couple seconds we've got, any final thought there?
Well, just keep your eyes on us. That's all I'll say.
Me too. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Liz? Nah.
Yeah.
Me too. Darren?
Nah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, well, it means I've got 30 seconds to kill before.
You can do this, Gary.
I can do it. Well,
What a professional.
this is Mvskoke Radio, of course, on 1240 The Brew. And we've been talking with our editorial crew from Mvskoke Media, kind of on some of the top issues we've been dealing with. and also some of the directions we've been going. Now, we hope that you will forgive us for the shameless plugs that we put in for ourselves, but you know what? We're really proud of what we do, and some of the feedback we've gotten from our listeners, viewers, and readers has been the kind of stuff that makes you proud and feels like we've accomplished the mission that we believe in and we all set out to accomplish. So we want to thank all of our folks here, and particularly those who are not in our studio today, our graphics crew. Come check us out. We got lots of fun stuff to do. Keep reading us, keep watching our TV show, and listening to this program. Mado. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more.